wish to welcome everybody to the Drinks and Dialogue event for this year. And once again, we're holding it on Zoom so that it really is a little bit more of a BYO beverage and snacks event. But we hope to return live at some point, and we'll be back to treating all of you. So at any rate, we do have a really great treat this evening, and that is that we have Secretary of State Jena Griswold and County Clerk Lori Mitchell, who are here this evening to discuss both at the state and local level what Colorado is doing to keep our elections accessible and our voting secure. Both are components, obviously, of maintaining a healthy democratic process for our state. We'll be starting with Secretary Griswold and then to Ms. Mitchell. Both will have some remarks and we'll have some limited time for questions. I have received a few questions from the League website, and since we have a large audience and limited time, we request that if you do have questions, that you put them in the chat box on Zoom. I'll do my best to read as many of them as possible. I'm joined here tonight with Margie Gray, also from the League, who is going to help keep us on track for this evening. Well, we begin this evening with Secretary of State Jena Griswold. She's the 39th Secretary of State and just the 10th woman to be elected to a constitutional statewide office in state history. She's also the youngest Secretary of State in the country. So congratulations, Ms. Griswold. Ms. Griswold has worked tirelessly to increase access to elections. This has included increased access to voter registration, increased polling locations, and mail-in drop boxes across Colorado, including on tribal lands and public universities. She has also worked for increased transparency of money in politics and lobbying. Secretary Griswold has been a champion for ensuring that all Coloradan voices are heard, and she is committed to restoring faith in government. Colorado is nationally recognized as a leader in voter turnout and election security. So Ms. Griswold, thank you so much for coming to Chaffee County. We wish we could host you in person, but we are delighted that you can free up time from a very busy schedule and be here with us tonight. So without more ado, I'm going to pass it over to Secretary Griswold. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Jena Griswold. I'm Colorado Secretary of State. I wish I could be with you in person. And also my bring your own beverage is water. So boo, next time we'll have to grab a drink together. I just really want to thank the Chaffee County League of Women Voters for hosting us. And by the way, you guys have an awesome clerk in Chaffee County, Lori Mitchell, who I see on, who just does such a fantastic job and with just so much humor and grace. So it's so great to see you, Lori. And I look forward to hearing some of your remarks. But to get to it, you know, this August, we celebrated the 101st anniversary of the formal adoption of the 19th Amendment into the US Constitution. And here in Colorado, women attained the right to vote 26 years prior, the first time in US history that women's suffrage passed by popular vote. However, even after the 19th Amendment was ratified, it would be decades until Native women and women of color gained full access to the ballot box. And that fight for full enfranchisement, seeing 101 years pass and seeing where we are now, continue on today. And just like the push for the 19th Amendment involved Colorado in a big way, the fight to maintain our democracy will also require Colorado's forward leadership. You know, here in Colorado, we are a national leader in elections. We are the national leader. We are the gold standard because we have some of the most accessible and secure elections in the country with one of the highest voter turnout rates in the nation. You know, we are stuck behind Minnesota for #2 in the nation for turnout, And I'll tell you, every time I see the Secretary of State of Minnesota or the US Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, they remind us that we're number 2. So hopefully we can get to number 1. But regardless, we have incredibly high turnout in no small part because of clerks like Lori Mitchell and the League of Women Voters who have fought to take our election system into the 21st century. To ensure access to the ballot box, Coloradans can register to vote in person, online, and even on election day, removing barriers to participation that far too many Americans still face. Just because you happen to be a single working parent, like my mom was, doesn't mean you should forego a day's wages or worry about childcare just to exercise your constitutional freedom to cast a ballot. Colorado is also a vote by mail for all state, with over 400 drop boxes statewide, early and election day in-person voting, and the guarantee of a voting center or drop box on all tribal lands and public universities. Since I've been Secretary of State, we've added 55% more ballot drop boxes across the state, created more in-person voting centers, partnered with the tribes, implemented automatic voter registration, and expanded access on college campuses and for voters with disabilities. And the results speak for themselves. We have one of the highest percentage of eligible people registered. We have the second highest turnout in the nation. And in the midst of the pandemic, we saw record-breaking turnout of over 86% of active voters. And this year, we continued that work by passing legislation with bipartisan support to improve our elections for all voters, including the creation of a multilingual hotline at the Secretary of State's office for minority language speakers that over 2,000 or more Coloradans speak, and that will start in 2022. And this really shines in stark contrast to what we're seeing across the nation: voter suppression. We are seeing over 500 bills to suppress the vote introduced in state legislatures in almost every state in this nation. We've seen attempts and unfortunately successes of voter suppression in Georgia, Florida, Texas, among other states, to restrict access and suppress the vote, striking at the very heart of what it means to be an American. And I think it's important to be very clear that these intentional voter suppression bills are meant to strip away the rights of Americans. And they disproportionately affect voters of color, low-income voters, and voters with disabilities. Until we have true national democracy reform through the Freedom to Vote Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and real campaign finance reform, we will continue to see many eligible voters outside of Colorado struggle to cast a ballot in this election cycle and the next. In addition to voter suppression, disinformation is one of the most significant threats to our elections today because it strikes at the heart of voter confidence. If 2020 was any indication, bad actors both here and abroad will continue their attempts to undermine America's elections through disinformation. We are seeing bad faith election reviews, which my colleague in Arizona has coined as fraudits, fraudulent audits, in places like Arizona, Georgia, Texas, and Pennsylvania. We even saw a push for them here, but I prohibited them through emergency rule. And the goals of these reviews, like we saw in Arizona, is not to make our elections more secure, but to give air to conspiracies. And that's why it was so important to me to take the steps to stop unaccredited third parties from accessing voting equipment here in Colorado, and to stop the use of our elections to perpetrate the big lie. We don't need a sham report to tell us what we already know, that the 2020 election was one of the most secure we've had in our nation's history. When it comes to security, Colorado is a leader in secure elections because we already do bipartisan post-election audits that provide to a very high level of statistical confidence that voting equipment worked properly and the election results are correct. Voters need to be confident that the election information they receive is accurate and that elections are working well. That's why prior to the 2020 election, I created a special team called the Rapid Response Election Cybersecurity Unit, which is, we call, everybody loves an acronym, so their acronym is RESCUE. And they were set up to help combat foreign disinformation. And going into this year's election and into 2022, well, we're actually in the middle of this year's election, but going into 2022 after, we'll continue to focus on ensuring voters are getting accurate election information from trusted sources so that they can be confident that their vote counts. Now, Colorado also leads the way in election security because of all our security measures, both preventative and for detection purposes. Some of those safeguards include restricted access to equipment, chain of custody logs, equipment under lock and key, tamper evidence seals, the fact that every county is segmented from each other. So it's a closed network in every county with a lot of different passwords that are held by the county and by civil servants in the state office. We also require security protocols such as bipartisan testing on election equipment, such as tabulation machines before and after elections, and mail ballot signature verification. These are some of the ways that we lead in election security, and we will continue to be a model for other states going forward as we continue to innovate. Now, the last thing I would say in conclusion before we open it up to hearing your thoughts and any questions is I just want to underline where we are. From voter suppression to disinformation to threats against election officials through the stripping of authority from Republican and Democratic secretaries of state, we are at a crisis point when it comes to democracy. We are seeing the worst voter suppression since the Jim Crow era, but also laws to subvert the vote. Laws being considered that would allow a legislature to overturn the will of the people, to overturn free and fair elections. And so for so much of our history, many Americans have been systematically denied the right to full enfranchisement. And that's why I really encourage all of you to talk to your friends and your family about how important it is to participate in elections, including the statewide coordinated election happening right now, in all elections. And I really encourage all of you to share with your networks to encourage them to go to trusted sources of information. We need to fight against the voter suppression. We need to fight back against the disinformation and continue to lean in across the nation to the things that Colorado does so well. As Secretary of State, I'm dedicated to strengthening our democracy and will continue to push policies that expand access, acknowledge past injustices, and ensure that every voter, no matter where they live, their political affiliation, or the color of their skin, can make their voice heard. So thank you again for including me today. And the last thing I would say that I am so hopeful for our future in Colorado and the nation, because I know groups like yours will continue to fight for democracy for every eligible person. So thank you so much. Thank you to the Chaffee County League of Women Voters for hosting us and for all of your partnership and work.
Well, thank you. And we'll move on. I think it's terrific that you reach out and talk to voting groups across the state, and all of us in the mountains appreciate that because it's not easy always to get to the Front Range. We've had a few questions that came in from over the league website, and I'll start with those, but I would really recommend that if other people have questions, type them on up and put them in chat, and we'll do the best we can. We have about 15 minutes of Secretary Griswold's time, and so we'll do the best we can. One of the questions that came in was a question on what can we do as citizens, do you think, to help restore confidence in the election process? What would you recommend?
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
There we go. Well, I think that's one of the big questions, I think, of our future. Both with elections or with COVID, any of the big issues facing our nation, we're seeing those issues be used by foreign adversaries to try to divide us, and unfortunately by extreme elected officials also. So I think it's really important that elected officials tell the truth, rely on fact. Hey, we can have different opinions, that's fine, but knowingly spreading lies to help yourself or your political party is just a horrible place for us to be as a nation. And unfortunately, the incentives are for people to lie, for extreme elected officials to lie. So we need to make sure that elected officials are speaking the truth and push all elected officials to not spread lies. I also think it's so important to reach out to your friends and neighbors. You know, the most trusted person on any topic is people that you already know. And there's so many people like my mom, who lives in rural Colorado up in the mountains too, who will tell me, well, this must be true. I saw it on Facebook because my friend posted it. So we all really need to lean in and tell our friends, family, community members that just because you see it on social media, it is not true, and to send them to trusted sources of information. So I would say those two things: make sure elected officials and candidates are held accountable, because, you know, we just saw an insider threat in Colorado. I am very concerned that will continue to spread. But number two, become a source of information for your friend and family members. You all are leaders in your communities, whether it's in your family or community-wide. So we really need to lean in. And if you need any information on trusted sources of information, of course, you can come to my office, to your county clerk, but you can also go to the DHS, FBI, Republican attorney generals. There's lots of sources, and you can find more information on trusted sources at govotecolorado.gov.
Thank you. We had another one that came in on the league website a few days ago, and it was saying, this was a question asking if the state is reconsidering paper ballots and in-person voting. This person said, don't you think that it would cost less than the internal audits?
So the use of paper ballots actually save money. So there's been various studies showing the cost savings on a per voter basis. If I'm remembering this correctly, it's 6 cents per voter of savings every single election. So it does reduce the cost quite a bit. And, you know, the use of paper ballots is one of the reasons we're considered the safest state in which to cast a ballot. Because we can do those bipartisan risk limiting audits to ensure the integrity of both the voting equipment, but more importantly, the vote, to know that the results are accurate. So we already do bipartisan audits. Colorado is the national leader. We were first there under Secretary Williams to do a risk limiting audit, which is considered the best audit you can do. But a separate issue is the abuse of election systems for partisan reasons, such as the fake audits in Arizona, the fake audits in Texas, the fake audits in Pennsylvania, the fake audits in Wisconsin. And those do cost a lot of money. Number one, because they're being held by unaccredited, inexperienced folks who do not know how to do audits. So they're charging a lot of money to the states. But on top of that, you cannot allow unaccredited, unknown third parties access to voting equipment. They will very quickly compromise that equipment, and then jurisdictions will be stuck with a big old bill. And that's what we saw in Maricopa County. So no conversations on my end from taking our election system back. In fact, the opposite. I think every single state in the nation should be doing what we're doing, because it works. It makes it secure, it makes our elections accessible. It allows us to do bipartisan audits to really have faith in election results.
All right, thank you. Person just asked, it says, other than the effort to do a separate post-election audit you referenced, has there been any legislation introduced in Colorado that you consider to be in the category of voter suppression?
So, oh, absolutely. Last year, we actually had to stop 5 bills that would have suppressed the vote. So that included undoing our by-mail system. There was one piece of legislation that would require every single Colorado voter to show proof of citizenship to their county clerk. Lori, how would you like every single person in your county showing up? So really infeasible. So there were various pieces of voter suppression, even in Colorado. We stopped every single one of those pieces. But you know what we did? We passed legislation, 3 pieces of legislation with Republican and Democrat support to open up more access. That's what we do in Colorado. We stop the extreme legislation and we do our best to work across the aisle to pass good legislation. So that included the multilingual hotline that I mentioned in my remarks. It also included increased cybersecurity grants to the counties. Gosh, what else did we do? They passed ranked choice voting provisions and a whole host of things. And we'll continue to make sure that we're leaning in towards the future and continually innovating for increased access and always increased security.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, there was another question that said that our clerk is now working behind bulletproof glass. Has your office received threats?
Unfortunately, yes. I have received myself hundreds, if not thousands, of threats. We are seeing that across the nation, predominantly at the statewide level, targeting Democratic women secretaries of state. Though the Secretary of State in Georgia also was targeted quite heavily when he refused to find the votes that President Trump was asking him to find. It's a major concern. The level of vitriol is incredibly concerning. In large jurisdictions, there are 4% of election workers considering retirement in the next 4 years because of the level of vitriol. We don't want our county clerks to have to face that. We don't want our staff to have to face that. And on top of that, I would just say 2 other things. The level, I believe, of what opens up the door to death threats is much lower for women elected to office than men. Obviously, when in your introduction, you introduced me as just the 10th woman to win statewide constitutional office, which is an honor, but also a shame, because it shows that women have not had a seat at the table in a meaningful way in statewide constitutional office. And to see these threats, women considering running for office see the threats, right? It's not like they're done in a vacuum. So we have to get in front of it because it cannot be another barrier for women running for office. But on top of that, you know, I may receive the threat, Lori may receive the threat, whoever may receive the threat, but it's not just against us, it's against democracy. It's trying to intimidate us to stop us from doing the work that we should be doing, whether that's decertifying voting equipment in Mesa County when it's compromised by a county clerk, to speaking out against the voter suppression or the extreme elected officials lying for their own benefit. And what I can say about that is I won't stop, I won't be intimidated. But we have to see it for what it is. It's a tool in this effort to roll back access and democracy and to take away the freedoms of American voters. So we can't stop.
All right, thank you. There was another question that said, if the Arizona audit was a bad audit, why were 15 election law violations discovered and all passed to the Attorney General? All are felonies under investigation. This person apparently says that they can go through them if you would like that, but you may already know what those are.
Well, I can't speak specifically to the 15 election law violations. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But what I can say is that an unaccredited third party was hired by all Republicans in the Arizona legislature to conduct a fake audit. At points, they were looking for bamboo. At points, they took ballots to Montana, broke all chain of custody. And the results of this fake review was that they found more votes for President Biden. It was, I would qualify it as a political farce intended to further decrease confidence in elections. And what we're seeing across the nation, I think we can conceptualize as three pillars, 3 legs to a bar stool. 1, undermine confidence, lie, do fake audits, have people hear over and over and over that something is wrong. When we know nothing was wrong in 2020, there was no widespread issues. Ask the Attorney General William Barr if you don't believe the Democratic Secretary of State. But it's to chip away at that confidence for 2 reasons. The first reason is that second actual leg of this metaphor that's not quite working, the bar stool, to pass more voter suppression, and that's happening. It's passed in places like Florida, Texas, Georgia, Montana, Iowa, Ohio. make it harder for eligible Americans to cast a ballot, but also chip away at confidence into such a big way so that any win in the future, when it is contested, the allegation that something was wrong will be more easily believed. That's why we're seeing in an election like California's recall election, where it was about a 30% spread between the winner and loser, allegations of wrongdoing right away to chip away at confidence. And the third, I would say, leg of that stool is attacks on institutions. Those are your death threats. Those are bills to be able to turn over the will of the people. Those are insider threats like we saw in Mesa County. So overall, I think these fake election reviews are incredibly detrimental. Here in Colorado, they cause some county clerks, Republican county clerks, to receive death threats for refusing to do them. And they are not based in reality. They're part of a massive push to try to undermine confidence in the elections.
All right, well, thank you. I think we also have a question that you administer the campaign finance system. This is open to the public and transparent. And can you briefly talk about that?
Sure, of course. And I think, lately we've been talking as a nation a lot about elections. But to take a step back, the incentives for elected officials are all wrong. If an elected official doesn't like their voters, they can try to gerrymander them, throw them out of their districts. They can try to suppress their votes so they don't have to pay attention. Or they could just ignore them as millions and millions and millions of dollars of dark money comes in to bankroll campaigns. And then even more is usually spent on lobbying to get elected officials to listen to who actually got them elected, and that's special interests and billionaires. So that leads to really problematic incentives, because if someone doesn't have a strong backbone and they're in it for power or ego, they know they don't have to listen to the people. And that's wrong in the United States. An elected official should listen to their constituents and consider their point of view. So part of our work since I've been Secretary of State is really fighting against corruption through campaign finance reform, shining light on dark money, making it more transparent, make it so big donors who are probably spending more than our annual salary times 10 every single election cycle can't hide their political spending. So in 2019, I worked with the league. We passed comprehensive campaign finance reform. We banned foreign money. We shine light on some of the money that is basically washed through C4s into super PACs. We ensured that there's disclaimers on every single communication, whether it's on an issue or a candidate. We also set up enforcement. So not only do we have a better set of rules and laws to try to stop special interests from sidestepping doing what's right, we also have an enforcement unit that has been pretty active. I'm firewalled away from the investigations. Those are brought by civil servants in my office. We have a whole process, and it's working really well.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see, we've got about 3 minutes left. So this is where we're going to have to do this very quickly. One person was concerned about a fundraising letter from the Claremont group looking at constitutional sheriffs. I don't know if you're aware of that, but they were, the question that they had is if rural law enforcement refuses to enforce election and voting location protections of voting, the election site and perhaps the county clerks, what can you or the state do?
So I think that might be about voter intimidation. If rural law enforcement refuses to enforce election and voting location protections of voting, we really haven't. I'd love to hear. Lori may have some thoughts on this too. So in Colorado right now, there's additional number of voting centers required under the law. That's all in statute. Since I've been Secretary of State, not having correct sites or anything like that has not been a problem. One of the things that is a little concerning, and it's not a rural versus metro thing, is just what constitutes voter intimidation. So in 2020, actually in Arapahoe County, there was 2 gentlemen in military fatigue with open carry filming people as they dropped off their mail ballots. To me, that's voter intimidation. To someone else, it may not be. So I think what we can do is clarify the laws even further. And there's 2 types of enforcement that can happen. It can happen at the county level. It can also enforcement against voter intimidation can also be brought by the Attorney General.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I know you have to go. And I know that if you have a minute, or if your aides have a minute, I think there was still a question about Tina Peters, who I don't know, so I'm sorry about this. Should be a concern. The forensic report reported by Tina Peters, and does the county clerk and League of Women Voters understand the significance? So we will have to look into that. Perhaps the county clerk will look into that. And if you have any questions or comments that you can pass along later, we would appreciate that. But thank you so much for coming and for your dedication to our state. Feel free to stay as long as you like, but we know you're busy, and we know that staff is saying 6 o'clock, you are on to other events and other things. So at any rate, we are very pleased to have you. And thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. So
well, thank you. And I would just say, Barb, the League of Women Voters has supported every single piece of legislation we have gotten into law working with us. So we really appreciate your partnership. And again, you guys have such a gem in Lori as your county clerk. She works so hard for you. She's in the middle of the election right now. So like I always say, if you see her around town, you need to buy her a drink. She deserves it.
Right. We're sorry we can't do this in person.
Next time. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. So thank you for Secretary Griswold's time. And this also means we get to switch a little bit and go from the state level to the local level, in which case we have been very lucky to have another dedicated public servant in our midst, and that is Lori Mitchell. And Lori Mitchell has worked in the Chaffee County Clerk and Recorder's Office since 2011, was first elected as a county clerk in 2014. In 2018, Lori was elected to serve as president of the Colorado County Clerks Association. In 2019, she served as the elections legislative co-chair for the Clerks Association, where she worked on automatic voter registration, accessible ballots under the Americans with Disability Act, and increasing access to voter registration and voting for all Coloradans. Lori is a certified election registration administrator. This certification for election officials involves a multi-year program affiliated with Auburn. It is the highest achievement for election officials, and we are very lucky to have Lori with all of that background right here in Chaffee County. So Lori Clerk Mitchell is a 6th generation Chaffee County resident and holds a BA in journalism from Colorado State University. So it is my very great pleasure to introduce Lori. And again, if you have questions for Lori, please send them to me via the chat box, and we will go for another half hour and hope we can field as many questions as we can and hear from Lori what she's been up to, because you have been busy.
Thank you, Barb, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. It's always great to meet with you all and share all the things we do in elections here in the county. It was great to hear from the secretary. She gave a really great overview of how, we try to keep everything secure and we don't want to limit access. And I think one great thing about how we work in Colorado is we don't like to jump into something too fast. We try to do either pilots or test it out, because if you jump into something too fast, then I think if it doesn't work out as intended, it'll affect voter confidence. And so I like to work on any type of pilots and things like that will make our voting system better. I do think we have a great voting system because it's very voter centric in Colorado, where yes, we're a mail ballot state, but you can also vote in person. I think the choice to vote in person is really great. There's a lot of folks that like to go to the polling center, just as they would for a precinct polling place, where they fill out a signature card and get a paper ballot. There are some counties that if you go to vote in person, you vote on the accessible machine on the ballot marking device, but not in Chaffee County. We have a lot of folks that like to vote on a paper ballot. And so we make sure that that happens for them. All of those ballots still get all tabulated the same way. Accessibility, I was proud to work on the accessible voting laws that we did in 2019. It was a very proud moment. I met a lot with accessible folks and saw what their needs were, and we could see where we needed some technology. We needed to work with a different company to make sure that, you know, their readers on their screens could read the HTML, and it was very tedious. I learned a lot, but it was so rewarding to get that bill signed, and it's something we've built on in the last few years. I worked on automatic voter registration because there seemed to be some disconnect when folks were going to to get their driver's license or change their address at the Department of Motor Vehicles, where they were asked a series of questions about, do you want to register to vote? Do you want to select a certain party? And there was a very high declination rate, even though we tried to change the questions, tried to ask this, tried to ask that. Maybe folks just weren't comfortable. So what happens now is we register everybody just automatically. No questions, no craziness, just everybody gets registered. Those lists are transmitted electronically to us, and we immediately send out a letter to the voter saying, hey, did you want to be registered to vote? And if you do want to be registered to vote, would you like to select one of these political parties? And then we hear back from them. We get them all the preferences. They double check all their information. We can grab another signature from them if they're making an adjustment. There's many things like that. There's little things that we try to work on constantly to make sure we're keeping up as things change. I think another great thing for getting votes counted is we now have what's called text to cure. So a big part of our security is signature verification on every single mail ballot. And so if a voter maybe only has one exemplar in their voting record, it could be a crazy finger signature from when they got their driver's license, and maybe the signature on the back of their envelope doesn't quite match what's in their record. So we give them an opportunity. A bipartisan team of judges will challenge that signature, and we give the folks in the voters an opportunity to cure that. So we, as a state, we have this program now. Well, it's called Text to Cure, and it's very secure, where folks can do everything electronically on the phone. We send them a code. They snap a picture of, yeah, I did vote my ballot, and then here's my signature. And they also take a picture of their ID and send it to us. It doesn't save anything on their phone. It sends it to us securely. And once we record the stuff, it goes away. So we had a lot more folks and a lot more younger folks do the text to cure process last election. And we were proud of that because many times if the vote totals aren't close, folks won't take that 8 days to cure their signature. They're like, I know who won. I'm not going to worry about my signature getting cured. So anyhow, if they don't cure their signature, we have to send those to the district attorney. So it's always great when we can offer more opportunities for folks to get their ballots counted. For other things that I've been working on going forward, trying to always build, try to, have our security things. And now, like the secretary alluded to, we have some insider threat things that we didn't normally think about. So we're always trying to balance everything securely, as well as build in more transparency for the process. And I was fortunate, I got asked to be on a panel this week. We had our first meeting, and it was from the Carter Center. So they have observers all over, and a project with William and Mary, and we had some other academics on the call, and I was trying to learn most of it, but I got to share some of my experiences and some of my challenges. And so I'm really looking forward to always looking to be more transparent in what I can do. To build public trust in our election system. I know things have got a little crazy, and I just want everyone to know that I'm doing my best to try to always build public trust in our systems. We do have our election going on right now. That's why I didn't really have any prepared remarks, because there's always something, you're doing, and just trying to sometimes you get knocked off your game with other priorities. And this isn't the only thing we do here. We do a lot of other jobs here in this office. So anyway, just an update on the election. Our ballots started arriving in mailboxes, and we've checked in 351 ballots so far, and we're going to start checking in more ballots, receiving more ballots into the system tomorrow, as well as we're going to start signature verification tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And we've alerted all the interested parties about that. We try to keep everybody informed with any goings on. And starting yesterday, I previously would send out updates, and then I'm sending out updates. All the candidates get it, all the party chairs get it, the press gets it. So everybody's on the same page with all of the same information, and they know they can ask questions or whatever. So things are going to be moving forward. Little light on the returns now. I think that's typical for these off-year elections, but we're full on tomorrow. We're doing some signature verification. The next day, we'll have ballots to possibly deconstruct. We're getting that all sorted out now. And then starting Monday, our voter center, our voter service and polling center will open, and it'll be at the Scout Hut here in Salida, our Salida vote center. And that's where you can go to vote in person if you'd like to vote in person. If you'd prefer to still vote a mail ballot and you didn't get your mail ballot, or you need to update your address or something like that, you can certainly come here to the elections office. We'll get it all sorted out for you. We'll hand you a new mail ballot. So there's those two opportunities. You can call us on the phone. We'll get it updated, send you out a second ballot. You can go to govotecolorado.com. I'm sorry, govotecolorado.gov. We all have to do the .govs now. It's a little safer. We'll go there and update your address, and we'll mail you out a new ballot, void your previous one. And then we'll have the vote center in Salida open from Monday through Saturday. Saturday will just be open for the 4 hours. And then we're only required to have the one vote center open, but when there's an entity like a Buena Vista School District on the ballot, I think it's only fair that we make sure that those folks have an opportunity to vote in person or get a replacement mail ballot. So we'll be open Monday and Tuesday at the community center in Buena Vista. So election day, November 2nd, and Monday, November 1st. We'll have folks up there. On election day, everything's open from 7 to 7. Reminder that the postmarks don't count on the mail ballots. Let's see. I'm trying to cover it, but
That's a good.
I want everybody to know what we're doing right now. And one of my favorite memes is, the mayor in Jaws 1 was still the mayor in Jaws 2. So local elections matter. We all need to get out and vote in these local elections. Sometimes these elections are, you're voting on things and folks that'll have more of an impact on your day-to-day life. And so I always think that's important to remember, and all elections are important. And I just want everyone to know I'm just going to do my best to make sure we have a free, accurate, secure, transparent election.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I have to tell you, we've got quite a bit of both questions and some messages. So I'll try to share both. First, there was a question, are those times published on a website that you can share with other people for when the voting booths are open? And
I believe it's updated on the website. If not, I will. Everybody in their mail ballot packet has everything like that. I'm going to send it out it's a little more challenging when the Mountain Mail doesn't get going every single day, but we're going to get stuff online. Let me double check and make sure we've got everything up to date. I thought they were posted especially for our sites, but just regular 8 to 5 business hours at the Scout Hut, and then Saturday 8 to noon to try to help out there. And then starting on Monday in Buena Vista, 10 to 5, and then 7 to 7 on election day. Obviously, in Salida too, 8 to 5 and 7 to 7. But in Buena Vista, we start at 10. It's just sometimes there's getting going and stuff, and I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable and ready to go and ready for action at 10 o'clock on Monday in Buena Vista.
Okay, well, that's great. Okay, a couple of other quick ones, and then I do want to read some of these other little notes that are coming in. You've got a lot of fans, Lori. Anyway, we just have some. Thank you, Ms. Griswold. And then we also have this person said, Lori, we're so fortunate to have you. What can we expect in this cycle compared to last year in COVID?
Well, it's just it's a moving target, and we're just trying to do our best to keep the judges, the election judges safe, and all of the voters safe, and as well as our staff safe. And it's obviously the metrics, the cases are going up and up, and we're just going to try to be as safe as we can. That's why we've moved to a larger space. We just outgrown our space here in the courthouse, and so we're setting up our vote centers at larger areas so we can have social distancing and make sure everybody feels comfortable. But there's constantly changing rules about how many in a room, and ventilation and masking and stuff. So we're up on that. We're up on the secretary gives us a lot of guidance. The state gives us a lot of guidance, as well as our local health department gives us a lot of guidance, and we rely on them to make sure that we're doing all of the right things to keep people safe.
Oh, great. There's also a question. Are you going to have another open house to show how votes are counted?
It's a little difficult now because it's like a security thing right now. We're just got everything set up, and we're going to have a lot of activity starting tomorrow, almost every day. I probably won't, but certainly shoot me an email and we can certainly see what we can do. I could maybe shoot a quick little video for you and shoot it to you and describe what's going on. I can write it out. I can take still pictures. I'd love for everybody to see it. So I'll do my best to communicate however I can.
Okay, well, that is great. We also just have somebody who said, go Clerk Mitchell, thank you for what you do. And then somebody else said, we're so proud of you. You frustrate people who may have an interest in suppressing the vote and cast aspersions on integrity. No wonder that sometimes you're given a hard time. And then another wanted to just know that they feel really fortunate that you are working here and in our community. And then there were a couple more questions on, let's see, what do we have next? It's hard. I know there was one question that wanted to know if you were having difficulty finding election judges to work in this election or not.
Well, we aren't for this election. This is a nonpartisan election, so the requirement for the vote center is only 2 judges. We feel like we have everybody sorted out. They've already been working in ballot transport and whatnot. We've solidified all of the lists. What happens with the parties is at their caucus, they submit lists after their caucus. They have only so many days after the caucus in the even number of years to submit the list, and those folks are nominated and take those positions for 2 years. So we usually try to exhaust that list and then move on to the new, and we always try to have a balance of judges that have done the jobs before and new judges, because we just, you just never know. But as it stands now, I think my staff works really hard in communicating with the judges and managing everybody's schedules, and somebody's got a dentist appointment now, or just it's a constant thing to manage. And anybody that's ever had a business or personnel knows that that's one of the biggest part of your job is doing that, because we don't even we have like 10 employees, but then we're going to have like 20 judges or something, so we're doubling our capacity. And I think they do a really great job, and they do it with a smile. And another thing with the judges, I'm probably going to way more than anybody ever wants to know about this, but because of COVID, it gives a little more challenge, because normally they'd have a break room and they could go take a break, and then you could trade out and do the things, but we can't really have that for COVID reasons. And so we don't really set up an area for like a break room. So we do shifts. So you're going to work this shift, and then you can go home, and then you work this shift. But everybody's been really great. So I think we're set for now. But obviously, if you have interest and you're affiliated with a party, you can certainly contact your party, and you can get on a list that way. If you need us to forward it to your party, we'll certainly do that. If you're unaffiliated, certainly give us your name, and we'll tell you how to become a judge that way.
Terrific. Okay, and then somebody else, and I don't know if you know this report or not, there's a question about a forensic report provided by Tina Peters, and saying that it should be a concern for voters in Colorado. And do you have any questions? Do you have any comments about that? And do you have a feeling about what the significance of that report is? I haven't read the report, so I'm not quite sure. But
I don't know exact report they're talking about. I was talking to my friend Justin Grantham, who's the clerk in Fremont County, and we were talking about, we feel so fortunate that we all have paper ballots in Colorado. And actually 95% of the votes were cast on a paper ballot in the whole United States in 2020. But we have paper ballots, and that would be the ultimate audit. So, ballots are public documents after the election. And so you could get all of the copies of the ballots, and you can add them up yourself. That would be a great forensic audit. And I think there's a lot said about our machines, but really we have the paper trail, we have the audit trail to show that the votes were counted correctly. But I apologize, I am not familiar with this exact report.
all right, that is fine. At any rate, we also have a note saying, yay, Lori Kitten Company. We also have a note to say, proud to have the gold standard for the country and the gold standard for the state in our county. We owe it all to Jena Griswold and Lori Mitchell. So at any rate, we've had some comments, and I didn't know if you had any final things that you wanted to make sure that the voters understand and are aware that your office has been doing.
Well, I don't think so. Like I said, we just, we'd love to have your ballot back early. And we usually try to tell people, we give out the list every day of who has voted. And if the campaigns are working that list, your name comes off after we tell them you've already turned in your mail ballot. So you may not have all the door hangers on your door. You may not get some phone calls, some Facebook messages or something like that. So that's always a plus. It helps us and the judges process your ballot in a more timely manner. And so in the end, it actually saves the county money at the end, because we don't have the extended hours on election day. We'd love to have your ballot back early. We just want your ballot back. If you want to give it back to us early, we'd really appreciate it. Like I said, from now on, we're going to be, hitting it pretty hard. Everything's a little bit in flux with how many ballots we have back, but like I said, it's a little bit slow. Remember Jaws, you got to vote in the local elections, and love to have your ballot back.
Oh, that's terrific. So at any rate, we just so appreciate that you are working away down there, helping to keep our elections secure and honest. And I know you've put in new video equipment. And so you've had a busy summer, but at any rate, I certainly thank you for all of that. And I thank all of you for coming this evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that works for informed and active civic participation in government. and works to increase understanding on major public policy issues. The League never endorses candidates for office, but does study and take stands on public policy issues. In that vein, remember, we have materials on our website about the proposals that people are voting for in this election. The state also has materials on the proposals that are up for a vote. And at any rate, this event has also been recorded, and it will be posted on our website probably within the next four or so days. We have to get some of our folks who are techie busy to transfer the data into a format that we can post it, but we will have it there for you. And as usual, we totally appreciate all the interest that people give and all our public servants for being willing to come on a Zoom report and talk even in the middle of an election. And so we appreciate all your time and effort. So at any rate, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you on future Drinks and Dialogues. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, good night.